What if I told you the highest paid footballer on the planet might be refusing to play? Cristiano Ronaldo earning £488,000 every single day, suddenly at the centre of a shock storm that could shake Saudi football. Is this about money, power, or something far deeper? Because behind the headlines lies a truth no one is talking about. And once you hear it, everything changes. We'll explain everything in this video step by step. Don't skip it. Stop everything because the football world is on fire right now. Reports are swirling, whispers are getting louder, and the headlines are screaming one unbelievable claim. Cristiano Ronaldo has gone on strike and is refusing to play, despite pocketing a jaw-dropping £488,000 per day in Saudi Arabia. Yes, you heard that right, nearly £500,000 every sunrise. And yet CR7 is at the centre of a storm that nobody saw coming. This is the same Ronaldo who built his legacy on discipline, obsession, and an unbreakable will to win. The same man who dragged teams to glory, silenced stadiums, and turned pressure into trophies. So what's happening now? Sources say tensions are boiling, expectations are massive, the spotlight is relentless, and when results don't match ambition, even legends feel the heat. This isn't just about money, this is about pride, pressure, and a superstar who refuses to accept anything less than greatness. Fans are divided, critics are loud, social media is ruthless. Some are asking, is this the beginning of the end? Others are firing back, count him out at your own risk. Because if football has taught anything, it's this: Ronaldo thrives when the world doubts him. Remember, this is a man who has conquered England, Spain, Italy, and now the Middle East. A man who doesn't hide from chaos, he feeds off it. Is this frustration boiling over, or the calm before another Ronaldo comeback chapter? One thing's for sure, when Cristiano Ronaldo makes headlines, football stops and watches stay locked in because this story is far from over. Reports suggesting that Cristiano Ronaldo has refused to play have sent shockwaves across the football world, igniting intense debate, speculation, and controversy. The mere idea of Ronaldo going on strike feels almost unreal because his entire career has been built on availability, hunger, and an almost obsessive commitment to competition. From his early days breaking into the Sporting Lisbon first team to his relentless rise at Manchester United, Real Madrid, and Juventus, Ronaldo has always been defined by one thing above all else he plays. He shows up, he demands the ball, he demands responsibility. That is why these reports have hit so hard, challenging the very image that has followed him for more than 2 decades. According to circulating claims, the refusal to play is not rooted in laziness or indifference, but in deep frustration. Ronaldo is known to be brutally honest with himself and with those around him, and when standards drop, tension rises. In Saudi Arabia, expectations were enormous from day one. His arrival was not just a signing, it was a statement of intent, a signal that the league wanted global respect and competitive credibility. With that came pressure not only on Ronaldo to deliver goals and moments, but also on the club to match his ambition with structure, quality, and consistency. When results falter or performances dip, Ronaldo's reaction has historically been intense. He has never been the type to hide behind excuses or quietly accept mediocrity. At previous clubs, this intensity sometimes manifested in visible frustration on the pitch, confrontations on the touchline, or strained relationships behind the scenes. The idea that this frustration could now escalate into a refusal to play suggests a breakdown in trust, communication, or shared vision between player and club. For a footballer who measures success in trophies, records, and legacy, feeling powerless within a project can be more damaging than any defeat. There is also the psychological weight of being Cristiano Ronaldo. Every match becomes a referendum on his relevance. Every missed chance is amplified. Every defeat is linked directly to his presence. In such an environment, emotions run hotter and decisions carry greater symbolic meaning. Refusing to play, if true, would not simply be an act of protest, but a message, a signal that something fundamental is not aligned, that standards he believes are non-negotiable are not being met. Critics have been quick to frame the situation as entitlement, pointing to his salary and status. Supporters, however, see it differently, viewing it as the reaction of an ultra-competitive athlete who refuses to accept a role that undermines his drive to win. The truth likely sits somewhere in between, shaped by pressure, pride, and a career spent at the absolute summit of the game. Ronaldo has never been just another player in the dressing room. He has always been a force that reshapes environments around him, for better or worse. And when that force meets resistance, friction is inevitable. Cristiano Ronaldo's £488,000 per day contract has become the most explosive detail in this entire situation, turning what might have been a routine internal dispute into a global talking point. That number alone is enough to stop conversations, dominate headlines, and fuel endless debate because it represents far more than money. It symbolizes power, expectation, and scrutiny on a scale rarely seen in football. Every decision Ronaldo makes in Saudi Arabia is now filtered through that figure, with fans, critics, and pundits constantly asking whether any action can truly justify such earnings. This level of pay changes the narrative around everything. When Ronaldo scores, the money is framed as an investment paying off. When he struggles, the same figure is weaponized against him. The daily wage becomes a measuring stick not just for performance, but for attitude, leadership, and commitment. In this case, reports of a refusal to play have collided head-on with a staggering salary, creating a perception gap that is difficult to bridge in the public eye. For many observers, the question is no longer about tactics or team dynamics, but about responsibility and obligation. From the club's perspective, the contract was never just about goals. It was about global visibility, commercial growth, and accelerating the league's international profile. Ronaldo's presence brought sponsorships, television deals, packed stadiums, and worldwide attention almost overnight. That value is always visible on the pitch, but it is deeply embedded in the business side of the project. However, when sporting issues arise, financial context is often ignored and focus shifts entirely to what happens between the white lines. For Ronaldo himself, the contract also carries a heavy psychological burden. Being the highest paid footballer in the world removes any shelter from criticism. There is no room for nuance, no patience for transition phases, and no tolerance for visible frustration. Every reaction is magnified because the public expectation is that someone earning nearly £500,000 a day should be immune to dissatisfaction. That assumption ignores the mindset of elite athletes who often value competitive fulfillment as much as, if not more than, financial reward. The salary also reshapes relationships within the squad. Teammates are aware of the imbalance even if it goes unspoken. Leadership dynamics become complicated and authority can be questioned or resented. In such an environment, any sign of discontent from the highest paid player risks being interpreted as arrogance rather than ambition. What might be seen as passion from a lesser paid player can be reframed as entitlement when attached to such extraordinary wages. Public reaction has been relentless. Social media has turned the daily wage into a meme, a punchline, and a moral argument all at once. Supporters defend the deal as fair market value for a global icon, while critics argue that no level of frustration is acceptable under such financial terms. The money dominates the narrative so completely that it threatens to eclipse the human reality behind the situation, reducing a ex-professional conflict into a single sensational number that follows every development and intensifies every judgment. Rising tension and pressure in Saudi Arabia have formed the emotional backdrop to this entire situation, creating an environment where every match feels heavier than the last. From the moment Cristiano Ronaldo arrived, the spotlight intensified not just on him but on the league, the club and the project as a whole. What was once a developing football landscape suddenly became a global stage, with expectations skyrocketing overnight. Success was no longer something to build toward gradually, it was demanded immediately, and that urgency has slowly tightened the atmosphere around everyone involved. The pressure comes from multiple directions at once. Club management wants results that justify the scale of investment. Fans expect dominance, trophies, and moments worthy of a global icon. The league wants validation on the world stage, using Ronaldo as a symbol of its ambition and credibility. Within that storm of expectation, every dropped point feels amplified, every tactical decision is dissected, and every emotional reaction becomes a headline. This constant scrutiny creates tension that seeps into training sessions, dressing rooms, and touchline interactions. For Ronaldo, this environment is both familiar and suffocating. He has lived under pressure for most of his career, but this situation is different in nature. In Europe, pressure was tied to competition at the highest level, where defeat often came against equally elite opponents. In Saudi Arabia, the expectation is not just to compete, but to dominate consistently. Anything less than victory, framed as failure, and that standard leaves little room for adaptation, experimentation, or patience. When reality clashes with that narrative, frustration builds quickly. The tension is not limited to results alone. There is also pressure to perform a role that extends beyond football. Ronaldo is expected to be an ambassador, a leader, a marketing engine, and a symbol of progress, all while maintaining elite athletic output. Balancing these responsibilities can strain even the most experienced professionals. When performances dip or internal disagreements emerge, the weight of those expectations can turn minor issues into major conflicts. Within the squad, pressure manifests in subtle ways. Players feel the need to prove themselves alongside a global superstar, knowing that comparisons are inevitable. Mistakes become more costly because they are magnified by association. Confidence can fluctuate and chemistry can suffer when anxiety replaces freedom on the pitch. Over time, this tension can erode trust and unity, especially if results do not align with the narrative being sold externally. Media attention adds another layer. International outlets monitor every development, often framing stories in extremes. Progress is downplayed, setbacks are dramatized, and internal dynamics are speculated upon with little room for context. This creates a feedback loop where tension fuels headlines and headlines fuel more tension. In such an environment, emotions are constantly tested and reactions are rarely judged on their substance, but on how they fit the broader story being told. Culturally and structurally, the league is still evolving, and that transition brings its own challenges. Systems, expectations, and footballing philosophies are adapting at speed, and not everything moves in perfect harmony. For a player accustomed to highly refined structures and immediate responsiveness, these growing pains can be particularly frustrating. When ambition races ahead of infrastructure, pressure fills the gap, creating a volatile mix that affects decision-making, communication, and morale. Uncertainty about Cristiano Ronaldo's future has become the most compelling layer of this story because it touches directly on legacy, motivation, and the final chapters of one of football's most extraordinary careers. When questions begin to surface about where Ronaldo goes from here, they are never just about transfers or contracts, but about identity. For 2 decades, his career has followed a clear pattern of movement driven by challenge, ambition, and an unrelenting desire to prove himself at the highest possible level. Any suggestion that his current situation might not align with that pattern naturally fuels speculation about what comes next. At this stage of his career, every decision carries historic weight. Ronaldo is no longer chasing acceptance or recognition. He's shaping how his story will be remembered. Staying in Saudi Arabia could mean continuing to break records, expanding his influence beyond Europe, and helping redefine what success looks like in a growing league. Leaving, on the other hand, could signal dissatisfaction or an unresolved hunger for a different kind of competition. The uncertainty itself becomes a narrative, one that invites endless interpretation and debate among fans and analysts alike. The idea of a possible comeback in whatever form it may take adds another layer of intrigue. Ronaldo's career has been defined by defiance of decline. Time and again, he has responded to doubt with reinvention, adapting his game, his physique, and his mentality to remain relevant. Whenever he has been written off, he has found a way to reassert his presence, often in dramatic fashion. That history makes it difficult for anyone to confidently predict an ending, because precedent suggests that his next chapter is rarely predictable or quiet. Internal motivation plays a crucial role in this uncertainty. Ronaldo's standards have always been self-imposed and uncompromising. If he feels those standards cannot be met within his current environment, restlessness is inevitable. That restlessness does not always lead to immediate action, but it creates a tension that lingers beneath the surface, influencing behavior, mood, and engagement. Observers often misinterpret this as instability, when in reality it is the byproduct of an athlete who has never learned how to settle. From the club's perspective, uncertainty creates both risk and leverage. Ronaldo's presence guarantees attention and revenue, but it also demands alignment with his expectations. Managing that balance becomes increasingly delicate as questions about commitment arise. Any hint of a potential exit or dramatic turnaround shifts the power dynamic, affecting planning, messaging, and long-term strategy. The future becomes a moving target rather than a fixed path. Fans play a significant role in shaping the narrative around uncertainty. Some see the situation as a temporary storm before a resurgence, trusting in Ronaldo's track record of resilience. Others interpret it as a sign that the project has reached a crossroads. These conflicting perspectives coexist, feeding speculation and keeping the conversation alive across platforms and communities. Ultimately, uncertainty is what keeps this story gripping. It transforms routine football news into a living drama where every appearance, omission, or reaction is analysed for clues. As long as questions remain unanswered, the possibility of a comeback, a turning point, or a defining moment continues to hover over everything, ensuring that attention never drifts far from Cristiano Ronaldo and whatever chapter he chooses to write next. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe.